Legends and Luminaries. I'm Julie and welcome to another episode of Booksmart. This is kind of a Throwback Thursday episode, but not quite. It's a book from my small collection, but it's been re-released. It is the Marilyn Monroe Treasures, featuring rare and unseen photographs and memorabilia by Jenna Glatzer. But the new version is not titled The Marilyn Monroe Treasures. It is called Marilyn Monroe, A Photographic Life, featuring rare photographs and memorabilia. Mine was published in 2008, and I found it in the bargain books at Barnes & Noble. The new version just came out in November. From what I can gather, it's exactly the same one I have, just with a new title. I've kept many of my Marilyn Monroe books, and I've read about 3 times what I've kept. The reason this book stands out is the little pockets of replicas of memorabilia the book gives you in these little envelopes, and they have a fold-over kiss even for an extra touch. There's something about holding something, even if it's not the original, that makes you feel as though you're holding a piece of history, something significant and sentimental to a person or a place or a time. But before I show you some of these delightful pieces, let me cover the text of the book first. It's a bit gossipy for my taste. It reads like tabloid stories in some places. I would not recommend it for readers who know little about Marilyn Monroe, as it reads more like a tabloid with little development. Granted, in just 175 pages, Glatzer does an excellent job at summing up Marilyn's life, especially when half the book is filled with photographs. Yet in that small amount of space, Glatzer makes sure to cram in as many salacious tidbits as possible, which I won't bother to repeat. She also includes snide remarks by Joan Crawford and Tony Curtis, which is fine, but once again, in such a brief book on the entirety of Marilyn's life, it seems like wasted space for wasted information. Then she spends half a page on a handful of personal stories from people she interviewed. It just doesn't seem to work as a whole. Either give us tidbits of her life with such stories and then use memorabilia from it, or just do a summary of her life. It's incredibly disjointed. But Glatzer does provide the reader with some new information within these stories, as long as you consider the sources. She has done her research, some of it anyway, pulling quotes from many published newspaper and magazine articles and other interviews. I appreciate that. And with all my reading of Marilyn books, there were a few things in the book that I don't recall knowing from other sources, like the note Joe DiMaggio kept in his wallet until he died that Marilyn had written to him earlier. Glatzer does not include a copy of this in one of the treasure envelopes, but she does relay the text of it. Let me read it to you because it was something that I did not know before. Joe kept this note scribbled on the back of the dry cleaning receipt in a wallet until he died. Dear Joe, I know I was wrong. I acted the way I did and said the things I did because I was hurt, not because I meant them, and it was stupid of me to be hurt because actually there wasn't enough reason, in fact, no reason at all. Please accept my apology and don't be angry with your baby. She loves you. Lovingly, your wife, for life, Mrs. J.P. DiMaggio. It's incredibly touching that he kept it, and if the circumstances are true with their relationship, it's even more startling of a note. There's also quite a lengthy section regarding a trip to Illinois, of all places, for an art festival. The state police drove Marilyn around, and one of the daughters shares her father's story. There's even a picture of Marilyn's autograph included. But the balance of these personal anecdotes with the summary of Marilyn's life just seems arbitrary. Then we have the great debate about how much of such information, rumors, and lies are true. Glatzer seems to deal with this on the very first page when she writes, "Let's talk straight, Marilyn Monroe was a fibber." We don't know what is completely true and what isn't. Even our facts may not be facts after all. Glatzer takes whatever information she has and uses it however she wishes. This isn't necessarily a horrible thing. Rumors abound that Joe DiMaggio physically abused Marilyn. Glatzer states this as a fact, and it probably is. She doesn't paint Arthur Miller in a nice light either, which I appreciate since so many biographies seem to gloss over some of his nastiness, and no matter how much I love The Crucible, Arthur Miller just wasn't very nice to Marilyn, in my opinion. Glatzer writes that Monroe was the breadwinner and Miller took advantage of that. He also hated the Greens, who were the co-owners of Marilyn Monroe Productions, which only lasted one picture, which may have been due to Miller, who knows. Glatzer uses her information to show that Marilyn didn't have an affair with Bobby Kennedy, depending upon which sources you believe. Some say Marilyn was much more smitten with Bobby than Jack, and they had an ongoing affair. Who knows? Glatzer does provide the inconsistencies with Marilyn's death, especially Eunice Murray, Marilyn's housekeeper, who may or may not have been a spy for Marilyn's Dr. Greenson, which that whole relationship should have violated all doctor-patient boundaries. But Glatzer even states that if Marilyn's drugs were administered via an enema, that Murray did it. We don't know what happened, and we probably never will. What I'm getting at is if you aren't familiar with all of Marilyn's complex life story, do not take this book at face value. There's a lot more to the story. As for the pictures, which on my book states unseen photographs, I don't remember at the time when I got this book in 2008 how many photos were new to me. I have sort of a photographic memory with pictures. The one picture that I know I had never seen before is this one from Korea. It's not well focused picture, but it's still neat after all these years to find a new photo of Marilyn. The other photos are the typical ones you'll find in a Marilyn book, a good smattering that covers the span of her life. But the text and the pictures were not the reason I bought the book anyway. It's for the little tangible treasures inside. As expected, Glatzer includes some documents like birth certificates and marriage certificates. My mother was into genealogy and would have loved such items, but those are the things you can dig around on the internet and probably find and print off yourself. I like the stuff that isn't any sort of public document, like this expense list that Grace got her itemized when Norma Jean lived with her. A gray dress and lots of makeup, lipstick and eyebrow pencil, a box powder, nail polish, and a very expensive raincoat. There's a letter Norma Jean wrote her half-sister Bernice. What I find so neat about this is her handwriting. She would have been 18 years old at the time. Her handwriting is much different than that of her adult self. Then there's this replica of Photo Parade, but only within the pages of Marilyn in it, not the whole thing. I just love looking at the ads. Here's one for a novel called Celeste by famous author Rosamund Marshall, who gave you Kitty and Duchess Habsburg, and it says, a beautiful girl doesn't know she's supposed to be a bad woman. Sounds pretty smutty for 1949. It sure beats the ad for the complete mastery of mathematics later on in the magazine. There's a contact sheet by Philip Halsman for Life magazine called 8 Girls Try Out Mixed Emotions. These are the pictures that I think are neatest because they aren't the polished, most frequently circulated photos of Marilyn. Glatzer includes a drawing of Marilyn by her Gentlemen Prefer Blondes co-star Jane Russell. It's neat, but I don't think it looks like Marilyn at all. This is one of my favorites. It's cool. It's the wardrobe sketch of the infamous dress from the subway scene. I love these. Barbie has these on calendars and cards, and I just think they are the neatest thing. I wish there were more of these. My son is a plane and airport aficionado, so he loved the replica airline tickets. Marilyn's ticket says Mrs. Marilyn DiMaggio as they flew back from their honeymoon. I should also mention that most of the memorabilia is printed on sturdy paper. Some of the documents just regular paper, which makes sense. And finally, the heavily contested watercolor rose that Marilyn never gave JFK for his birthday. The original sold for $78,000 at auction, so I guess it doesn't matter much if Marilyn was the one who painted it or not. Although as I was snooping around online, an auction even sold the watercolor set that she allegedly used to paint said flower. The 2 inscriptions on it seem a bit dubious to me, but what do I know? It's still pretty nonetheless and belonged to Marilyn. On the last page of the book, Glatzer writes a lovely paragraph about Marilyn, sort of summing up her everlasting impression on us. And she writes, try as they might, film studios never did find the next Marilyn Monroe. Aside from her acting talents and her beauty, there was a quality about her that couldn't be imitated: her spirit. Insecure, needy, loving, passionate, ambitious, always searching within herself for something great. Looking at Marilyn is like looking into a reflecting pool. She represents qualities in each of us and in people we love. And there's something so heartbreaking about the knowledge that the world's most everlasting star died alone, achieving so much and yet not reaching the dreams she wanted most. If you are a Marilyn fan, this sort of coffee table book is a must just for all the little trinkets it comes with. With so much of Marilyn now being in the public domain, I'm surprised more of these books haven't popped up. Pictures of such items isn't quite the same as having something you can hold yourself and put it in a scrapbook. With all the Marilyn books out there, this one is one of the most unique ones I've found. I see creative possibilities in these little pieces of Marilyn's life, as well as these pieces, what we learn from them. They reveal snippets of Marilyn herself as they stand for themselves, untouched by bias or rumors or lies. Glatzer creating such a book about Marilyn was genius. I only wish there were more tangibles in the book. I wonder what Marilyn would think of such a book. I'd like to think she would love knowing that we treasure such pieces of her that reveal so many facets of who she was. Marilyn herself said, "If I am a star, the people made me a star. No studio, no person, but the people did." Thanks for watching. As always, my goal at Booksmart is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.